Hey, Steelers Nation, it's Joe Rockey from the Pittsburgh Syndicate. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how OTAs have told us a little bit about the Steelers, particularly focusing upon Joey Porter. And one of the main advantages that Porter Jr. has that local or recent draft picks really haven't had. And I want to start here by drawing a comparison to Kenny Pickett's situation last year and also drawing it to Broderick Jones' foreshadowing of this year. So obviously, Kenny Pickett, one of the highlights that we said about the Steelers loving him last year was he was local and the Steelers knew every single thing they could about him. He worked out next door, right? So Steelers know every single thing about him. He is around the organization. Pitt is one of the most intertwined colleges with a pro unit that you can have in all of the NCAA. And still, when push came to shove, first running back, Kenny was not adequately prepared to play opening game. And I don't mean adequately prepared in terms of arm strength or decision-making, because as the season went on, it was painfully obvious Kenny Pickett was more prepared and a better selection than Trubisky. Obviously, there's the beginning of the year that both of them are horrendous. But where I'm fast forwarding to is the home Baltimore game. Kenny was in a streak there of not turning the ball over. In fact, he ended the year on a great passes without an interception clip. Trubisky comes in and throws 3 interceptions in less than a full game. Same plays, same coordinator, same everything, same defense. And because we can see what Kenny did against Baltimore the second time. He does a come behind victory against a defense that hadn't allowed one in forever. So we saw that Kenny, from a on the field, arm, decision making, where to put the ball, better. But he still didn't get the starting nod. And this is one of the things that, looking at rookies, specifically non-running back rookies, is very hard to become a contributor in year one. And when we look at this, the problem isn't that they're not capable or that they're not ready to go. It's that the process of how to control free time whenever you're entering the league is very poorly articulated. For most people, it's like riding a bike. You just have to go through it to learn it. And one of the major disadvantages that every single rookie has is something that no one can really do anything about. And that's the fact that for the day they got done with their college season until the combine, they cared about the combine. That's their job interview. The vast majority of them, of all rookies, this is a totality NFL statement, are focusing on putting up the best numbers specifically for them as an individual in the combine. And for many of them, they don't directly translate to the football field. The first and foremost misnomer that is over practiced, that has little translation to the football field, is the 40 time. Because it's very few times an NFL play lasts at full speed for more than 4 seconds, let alone the full 40 yards on a dead sprint without making a cut. So when you're learning how to do track moves and come out of a stance and how to get your stride correct for those last 10 to 20 yards, they don't really come to play in the NFL that often. You know, think about it. If you're an off-ball corner and you're allowing 7 yards off the line of scrimmage, and even if this guy runs a 4.2, he's only going to get 33 yards downfield before the ball is released. Your 40 time doesn't matter. Your 40 time really only comes into play is if you get behind someone, can you outrun the defense? Which, quite frankly, by the time you get behind someone, you've already dominated the play, and it's all gravy on top. Sure, SportsCenter loves all those things, but the reality is it doesn't really matter. But it's one of the things that people spend the most amount of time on. The other thing that people spend a lot of time on because they have to is the actual off-the-field interviewing things. You know, this coordinator from a team that ultimately never drafted me wanted me to learn these 30 concepts that are similar-ish but different terminology than this coordinator. And there's 7 of them that are asking me to do this to see if I'm smart enough to play right guard for their team. That's a lot of mental power that's wasted. It's just an exhausting process. Not to mention, there's a healthy chunk of them that found out something was wrong with their body that they didn't know about through the medical process. That it's like, whoa, all of this happened. So why am I bringing this all up? Because it's incredibly common for the first time that players come back to OTAs, that this is really the first time I have been in football mode and not in job interview mode. And again, I don't blame him at all. It's the way the process is. You get drafted in the first round compared to the 4th round. It is a life-altering process that gets made up in the span of a work ethic of 4 months. Go all into it. But it puts you at a major disadvantage coming out. And I used Kenny as the example last year, but when we see people who have come out of this is why you see the biggest jump entering the second year. Now, all of this was to start with Porter. I believe Porter, of all of the rookies, is least susceptible to this. And the reason for that is the legacy factor. Kenny's next door. He saw how the Steelers work, which is great. But there's a giant difference between being around them since the time, as many reporters say, he was below my knees, with your dad going through it for as a longevity of career as Joey Porter had. This emphasis of how to gear up and what football shape actually will look like, because it's such a personal question. What does football shape work for you? There's not one generic answer. And I believe as a result of the legacy effect of Porter, compared to all of the other corners that were drafted this year. And yeah, obviously I was bigger on some of them than Porter. I'm not hiding that. But I believe that when we look at September, Joey Porter will get more playing time and have better results than people that are in supposedly better situations, like Gonzalez in New England or Witherspoon in Seattle. I believe that Porter is going to be better off overall, A, because of his dad, but B, it also takes a while to create a relationship with the staff. Tomlin and Porter Jr., that being, already have a relationship. They've had one before he left for college. Remember, he's one of his kids' friends. They hang out together. So that fact really emphasizes to me, or opens the door rather, more so than emphasizes, that Porter is going to be a stud. And I get that we're looking for content now, and it's like, oh, pump the brakes. Maybe Levi Wallace will hold out the spot. The only way Levi Wallace is not behind Joey Porter is if Joey Porter's not healed and he can't cut left or right. Or if Joey Porter hasn't learned how to release his hands and is a flag machine, which is that risk of Joey Porter will be on him his entire life. So was the risk was, what if Troy guesses wrong? Well, Troy never guessed wrong. It was never really an issue. It was a risk, sure, but it never happened. If Porter doesn't become handsy and he can learn how to do this, he could be Mel Blunt. And Mel Blunt is one of the 3 best corners of all time league-wide. That is the potential of Porter, and I am so excited for what he is going to be. And the more and more I look into this, the more and more I'm thinking that of all of the non-first rounders, which I get, he's the first guy who's not a first-round player, he's going to have by far the best career. This isn't going to be like one of these things where people look back and go, oh, how did you let that big of a talent drop to the 7th round? Well, Porter wasn't that. Porter's going to be the guy, well, Steelers did it right. There's not going to be someone behind him that's going to outshine Joey Porter. In fact, Joey Porter's going to outshine some of the people who went before him. I'm fairly confident that there were some questionably and poor decisions made at the cornerback position overall, and Joey Porter's just flat out better than him. So when we look at this, I'm really excited for what the season's going to be. I think that Porter's going to make this thing great. And guys, I'm just going to throw this out here. It might become a total episode later. Let me know if you guys want to break it down. But there's a very good chance on opening day that the Steelers defense is debuting 4 future Hall of Famers. with the upside potential of 7. 4 basically guaranteed, and another 3 on top of it. I don't see why the Steelers are not recognized as the 5 seed going into the playoffs right now. I get that the Jets exist. I get that people are in love with Miami. The Ravens have lost. We have beat the Ravens 5 of the last 6 times. Lamar Jackson refuses to play against us. These are facts. When I look at this overall, who out there is the menace? San Diego loves beating themselves. It's what they do. And Jacksonville's probably going to have a major regression point. So I don't see a way where the Steelers are not the 5 or the 1. And I believe that's where the 2 seed of the AFC North will happen to fall because of how weak our schedule is. So when it's all said and done, can Joey Porter take out Higgins? I think he will. And I think TJ's going to own Burrow. This is going to be a good year, guys. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go.